problem. It says a lawn company decided to raise their rate from $17.50 per hour to $22 per hour. One customer was curious what percent the increase was and came up with the following equation. 1750x equals 22. So before we go into solving what that x is for, let's go over what each part of the problem is and talk about how it's actually going to answer our question for us, which is, what is the percent increase? That's what we're trying to figure out. So for this first part of the equation, this is always going to be this way. Anytime you're trying to figure out percent change, your first part is going to be your original number or your original cost. Okay, that's always going to be your original. His company originally charged $17.50 per hour. Okay? The next part is going to be your scale factor. It's what you are multiplying by to change your original cost. You're taking the original cost, you are multiplying it times some number to scale it either up or down. Then we have equals our new cost. And we're going to be doing a couple of these this week, but this is always going to be the layout of the formula of the equation. Your original times your scale factor equals your new. Okay, well, we have a couple of things that are important to notice about this particular equation. First, our original is smaller than our new cost, which means we know something about that scale factor. That scale factor has to be greater than 1. Okay? So if it's getting larger, okay, from your original to your new, your scale factor is going to be greater than 1. If it's getting smaller, your scale factor is going to be less than 1. So in this case, because our original is smaller and we're getting bigger, we're getting larger, we know that our scale factor has to be greater than 1. So when we go to solve this like we'd solve any normal equation, and if we came up with a number that was less than 1, we would know that we made a mistake. Okay, now we go about solving this the same way we do all of our equations. So we have 1750 x equals 22. I'm going to draw my line down. And then the only step I have to do here to get x by itself is do my division. So I'm going to divide both sides by $17.50. And I am going to go ahead and do that on my calculator so I don't take up too much time on the video. So I do top divided by bottom, 22 divided by 17.50. And I get approximately 1.26. So x equals 1.26. Okay, but now I need to go back and see what is the question asking me. And in this case, it's saying, what is the percent increase? This is not an answer in percent. That is a decimal, okay? So we know the decimal is 1.26. If we were going to put that as a fraction, we could put 1 2600ths, or we could go ahead and put a whole 126 hundredths. Okay? But when we change this to a percent, we take our decimal, we move that decimal point over 2 to the right, so we have 126%. Okay, so the problem with this question is it says, what is the percent increase? We didn't increase it by 126%. The 100% was our original cost. Okay, so 100% of this is the 1750, which means we increased by 26%. Okay, so the price of the lawn care increased by 26%. Okay, so again, when you go to solve your equation, your scale factor is going to come out to be a decimal or a fraction depending on what you're working with. Okay, you then have to change it to a percent to be able to answer the question. All right, let's look at another one. So in this one, it says, an art class normally costs $75, but the community center is offering it at a reduced price of $55. If you sign up now, what percent of the cost are you saving? All right, so let's start off with our equation. Again, remember, it's original cost times your scale factor, which we do not know, that's our x, equals your new cost. So in this one, it normally costs $75. Okay, so we have 75 times x equals our new cost of $55. So then I go ahead to solve. I put my line down. I have 75 times x. To get 1x, I then divide both sides by 75. Okay, 75 divided by 75 is 1, so I have 1x equals, and again, I'm going to do this on my calculator, the top divided by the bottom, 55 divided by 75 gives me 0.73, and the 3 repeats. Okay. So let's take a look at that answer and see if it makes sense before we move on. I got a number for my answer that is less than 1. Does that make sense for this problem? Well, if my original was 75 and my new price is 55, that means I was decreasing it. I was making it smaller. So when we make something smaller, we multiply by a number that is less than 1. So I know that this makes sense. Unlike the one before where the price was increasing, so my scale factor was greater than 1. Okay. So now we need to figure out the answer to our question, which is what percent of the cost are you saving? So in this one, we have our decimal, which is that 0.73 repeated. We have a fraction version of this, and it would be 73, about 73 over 100. It's not quite, it's probably over that 99, but we're not going to get into that. And then our percent, when we take our decimal, we move it over twice, is 73.3 repeated percent. Okay, now are we saving 73%? No. 73% is that 55. That's how much we are paying, not how much we're saving. Okay, when you see that, how much are you saving? You then need to take, okay, my price would be 100%. I'm subtracting the amount that I am paying, which is 73.3%. And then I would get my answer. Okay, so 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 3 is 6. 9 minus 7 is 2. So we are saving approximately 26.7%. Okay? So there were a couple steps involved in this one. First, you find the scale factor. You then have to change that to a percent. And then you have to figure out, okay, well, if this is the price, the amount that we're paying, this 73.3%, how much are we saving from the original, which is always 100%. Original is always going to be equal to 100%. Okay? So just like in the last problem, and I know I keep going back to this one, this was our original, which was our 100%. Then we increased it by 0.26, or 26%. So now this is our 126%. Okay? In this one, we started with 100%. We are reducing it by 26.7%, which gives us our new percent of 73.3. I know it's a little bit confusing to think about it that way, but that's essentially what we're doing. All right, let's do one more. All right, so in these ones, we have the same numbers, but we're going one way here, and the other, we're going backwards the other one. So in this one, the 22 is my original. So it's 22x equals 28. And in this next one, the 28 is my original. So again, we're just kind of writing it backwards, equals 22. So let's go ahead and solve both of those. Okay, in this one, I'm going to divide both sides by 22. I'm going to get x equals 28 divided by 22, which is 1.27 repeated. In this one, I'm going to divide both sides by 28. X equals 22 divided by 28. And that is going to give me 0.7. I'm going to round that up to 0.79. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened here. In this one, up top, we went from a 22 to a 28. So we went bigger, which means we got a number that is greater than 1. In this one down here, we went from 28 to 22. We made it smaller, so our x is, our scale factor, our x, is a number that is less than 1. Okay, but what about the percent change from them? Okay, in this one up top, our percent change, remember this was our 100. We changed it then by 27%. We increased it by 27%. Okay, and this one down here, 0.79, okay, this is our 0.79. This was our 100. So what did we do to our 100 to get it to 0.79? We have to subtract to figure that out. Excuse me, so that should be 79%. Okay. That is 0, 9, 10, 1, 2. Okay. So we had a 21% decrease. And it's a little weird that we get different numbers for the both of them when we essentially have the same numbers in the problem. But when you go back the opposite way, it changes things pretty drastically. Okay? So that's pretty much all there is this week. It's just percent change problems. You figure out the equation. You solve for x. Again, x is your scale factor, and it's going to give you a decimal for your answer. And you then have to change your decimal to a percent. Okay, so remember how to do that. Anytime you have a decimal, you change it to a percent by moving your decimal place over twice to the right. So this is 79% here. This one, move it over twice to the right, is 127.27 repeated percent.